Welcome to the Shireen, everybody. How's it going? It's Sunday night. How are you, Lauren? How are you getting on?
I'm doing the very best. How are you? Just bopping away in the background to the wee fiddly dee music there at the start. Yep,
As
yep.
if it's the first time I've ever heard it, like
Ever heard
every
of
week for 4 years. All is good on my end. Welcome, everybody, wherever you're joining us from. I see folks joining us from everywhere from North Dakota to Canada to Ireland to Australia, New York. Fair play to you. You're all very welcome. Sunday evening, different time zones for all of you. But we'd love to know what's in your glass. What are you drinking? Because we're here to celebrate Irish whiskey as we are every week. The Shebeen is a informal gathering, unrehearsed, as you'll quickly discover. And it is a informal way to just hang out with our whiskey friends, talk about interesting things around the world of whiskey, and occasionally maybe make a plan or three, hatch a plan that will form over time and become a whole new thing we do. That seems to be the plan, isn't it? That seems to be what happens.
Definitely, this is where all the weird and wonderful ideas come to fruition. It's always after 3 whiskies at midnight in Ireland is when the best things happen.
It's the wrong time for us to be making any plans, but maybe that is the best time, ironically.
Seems to be. I see a good mixture of various whiskies and glasses tonight. I'm seeing Pars, Bushmills, JJ Corey. Got a good mixture going on. What's in your glass, Barry?
I'm drinking a drop of the new Redbreast Distillery exclusive, a 10-year-old Redbreast, 43% ABV, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's just released in the last week to coincide with the new visitor centre opening, and it's only available at Middleton or at Bow Street in Dublin. And it's a mixture of all 3 styles of pot still whiskey from Middleton: light, medium, and heavy pot. And it's enjoyable. I'll talk more about it as we go throughout the evening, but that's what's in my glass. What about you?
So I have a very special 2 stacks in my glass, which I saw a few people getting deliveries of these over the week. It's the 2 stacks 13-year-old single grain in the rosé champagne cask, of course, for somebody we know kind of well, Anthony Sheehy's 5th anniversary with Irish Whiskey Auction. So that's in my glass, first of all, and then I'm joining you in the Redbreast front, not with the reserve, but with a 12-year, a good old classic. 2
Brilliant.
lined up for me tonight.
I might move on to something else, TBD, but I'll find something from the screensaver behind me. I'll get something off that screensaver shelf.
The fake wall of whiskey.
I know. During the week when I'm doing meetings or I've calls, and I'll be on the same camera because I just sit here at my desk, and people always say, is that a screensaver you've got there? Like, can you send me on that screensaver? And I'll just go slowly back. I'll just grab a bottle.
No green screens here.
How's everybody doing? I hope you're well. We are celebrating as well an Irish win in the rugby. Ireland through to the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup after trouncing Scotland last night, baiting them into next week and sending them home with their tail between their legs, which we wholeheartedly applaud and celebrate.
But we beat them not only with rugby, but with whiskey as well. We're coming for them at all angles.
It's about time they knew their place.
I agree.
In all sides of things. So tonight we're focused on Galway, in addition to sharing maybe some news of the latest whiskey releases. We'll talk about some stories and sips, upcoming things, bits and pieces. We'll talk about Irish whiskey experiences. But we're going to do a little deep dive into Galway. We've been kind of working our way around the country over the past couple of months and exploring different cities for those who might be planning a trip to Ireland, for those who might be joining a whiskey bus, for those who want to create an itinerary for themselves and the next come to Ireland, or if you're in Ireland, you want to go deeper into any of the cities. Where have we visited up to now, virtually?
We've done, so Belfast was the first that we did with pubs-wise, whiskey bar-wise. Then we went to Cork, Killarney, and now Galway. So I think we asked the question when we covered Cork, where would everyone like us to kind of focus on next? And Killarney was the top and Galway was the second. So if anybody has any other cities or locations in Ireland that they want a little bit more information on in terms of pubs, sites to see, things to do, whiskey distilleries, and so on and so forth, tell us and we'll get around to it.
There must be enough to sustain a live stream, though. Don't be telling us something like Termin Feckin, or would you give us tell us a little bit about Athenry? What's going on in Athenry? A 3-minute broadcast and we're gone.
We're done.
A decent city, like.
Not even a sip of whiskey would cover some locations in Ireland. Yeah, somewhere. I think Kilkenny came up quite a
It
lot.
did, yeah. Kilkenny is on the list.
Yeah.
Kilkenny. There might be a few more. Did we do Dublin? We did Dublin. Did we do Dublin?
No, we didn't do
That's
Dublin.
a city on the East Coast, I hear.
You might have heard of it. It's not very big, very up and coming. Not really a lot going on. Not a lot of whiskey history or pubs. No, I think we've like very much covered Dublin indirectly, as in it always comes up in conversation. You're always dropping in the name of whiskey bars. In there, like Searson's, I think Bar 1661's got mentioned a good few times. The Palace, obviously. So we probably indirectly covered Dublin, but not as a whole shebang.
I know. Okay, well, we might do Dublin. We might focus on Dublin from a kind of a whiskey bar perspective as well at some point, and then maybe focus on some of the distilleries, because obviously it's the destination and most people will head to when they come to Ireland for the first time. Inishbofin, says Mark. How about we cover Inishbofin? Mark, how about we just cover that right now in the next 4 seconds? There's nothing to see in Inishbofin. Right, that's it. That's it covered. We can move on to the next place.
Moving swiftly onwards.
Bob Hurley's wondering how to open his W.D. O'Connell 5-year cask strength from Whiskey Bus 2. Yeah, there's a big wax head on that's so thick. Yeah. Lauren, you manage it with a sledgehammer and a chainsaw.
I did, yeah. I had to take pliers to it at one point as well. It was very, very difficult altogether. Was very close to just hitting it off the table, but I got there. You should have seen, Bob. This is if you had have wax dipped your bottle well enough, you should have a little tab hanging out that you can pull off the wax strip.
Just use your eye socket, like you're opening a bottle. Just the eye socket should do it.
Please don't break any teeth trying to open bottles.
Let's have a little look at the whiskey releases that have come out in the past week. It's not been a particularly busy week, but there is a lot coming. I can tell you that. There are releases every week over the next few weeks, even from one single distillery. One of the biggest distillery in Ireland will have many releases coming over the next few weeks as well. So stay tuned. We'll have more details on those. But things that have popped up over the past week that we want to talk about. Teeling have announced a distillery exclusive, which is another distillery exclusive. They're great for the distillery exclusives. This is one of their own single pot stills distilled in Dublin and aged completely in a red wine Portuguese oak cask and bottled at 62.2% ABV. It's available. You can buy it online. You can buy it like on their website, and you can buy it in the distillery shop, €100. I do like when a distillery has a release, a distillery exclusive that was distilled there and is at strength. And I think every distillery should have. I was thinking about this during the week because there was a bit of debate about Redbreast 10-year-old in Middleton at 43% ABV, and should a distillery exclusive be a higher price point? And for various reasons, I understand why it's at 43%. You're going to get more out of it, and it's going to be more approachable for people. But I think every distillery that has aged whiskey that they can release should have a crazy, wild release, like one that some people are going to hate it and some are going to think it's the best thing they've ever had in their lives. Like, what's that crazy Octomore equivalent from Bruichladdich? Like something that's just out left of center that showcases maybe the craziest aspect or the most extreme aspect of something that they do. I'd love to see that from distilleries. Like, I'd love to see Teeling do it. I'd love to see Middleton do it. I'd love to see something that you could only go to the distillery to get it. And I don't know, maybe it's packaged in some unique way as well. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's more the rawness of a distillery. I think there's a market for what would you describe as kind of like lo-fi packaging, as opposed to but a crazy liquid inside of it.
Yeah, and I think arguably it's a great point. Arguably, it's the safest way to do something like that because you're not kind of hitting markets with it. It's not going to flop in a certain market. Arguably, having a distillery reserve like that would be the safest area to explore. A mad cask or a mad finishing or something. So yeah,
I think so. Like, I think somewhere like Middleton or Teeling can do it. Bushmills could do it. Like, is there some crazy cask that's discovered? And they said, you know what? This is not like anything else we've ever released, but it shows we can do a thing. Whether it's wood, distilling, volcanic, who knows? So that's the first release that was announced this week. Nick Ryan, friend of ours from Limerick, announced that he has this whiskey available. This is a celebration. It was announced back in August or September, June, July, maybe. This was to celebrate 4 in a row All-Ireland hurling wins by Limerick. It's a Thomond Gate 6-year-old single malt, and it's been matured in ex-bourbon and finished in Imperial Stout and Amarone. It's Italian wine casks. 49% ABV, healthy ABV, €85. Irish Malt has it. Shannon Airport has it. Fine Wines in Limerick has it. Nick is a great man for the vattings of casks. He's a great man for the finishing as well. It's ex-GND, Great Northern Distillery single malt that has been finished in Imperial Stout and Amarone casks. So that's available now. So that if you're a Limerick fan celebrating the hurling, that's your chance to have an old sip to toast. Limerick hurling has gone through this. They've gone through the roof over the past few years, and a lot of people credit their. They have this woman who's she's like their mind coach, and she's off the field. She's mindset coaching them. Beyond the physical ability, mentally, what can they do? Thinking beyond what their physical, perhaps what their legs tell them or what their arms tell them, but rather no, here's what's possible. And she's been credited with really changing that team as well, which is, I think, quite interesting. Kind of the Tony Robbins effect.
Yeah, fixing the mentality of them. Kind of, I always remember being told that, like, if you think you're going to lose, you probably will. So it's kind of just about that, the mental shift.
John Fleming saying that Seamus Lowry from Bushmills had some interesting casks at the tasting in Charlie Foley's on Thursday. Very good. Yeah, there's some interesting old bottles, Lauren, you know nothing about that have come out of Bushmills for tastings over the years. Like, you did a great tasting in Cork Whiskey Fest last year with some unbelievable samples that I thought was the tasting of the festival, and it was kind of like you were squirreled away in the corner there near the end of the festival, but it was one of the tastings of the festival. It just shows when distilleries are asked for rare and crazy things, most who've been around a few years can actually find crazy things in the warehouses, can't they?
It's possible, and it's just asking what the kind of most wacky out there cask is. I mean, one of the ones we tasted, obviously, which you posted that you were enjoying last night, thanks to our good friend Alex, was the volcanic cask. When I was handed that sample back in March for the festival, I had never heard of it in my life, and I don't think anyone in the room had either.
Yeah.
A volcanic cask. I was like, oh, this is crazy. What is this? Who came up with this concept? So it's would be really interesting to see the cask inventory of older distilleries, to see what kind of searching they did back in the 90s for really bizarre casks and see what's hiding away.
And tasting events at bars and festivals are great chances to see those wild things, because there might be individual or not even a full cask that wouldn't be commercially viable as a release that can be shared out as a sample to show you what's possible. Yeah. Those are the only 2 releases. Oh no, there's one more. 4 Walls. This is an interesting one. So this is the lads behind It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the comedy show, the US comedy show, and 3 of the 4 behind it have released 4 Walls, and 4 Walls meaning the 4 walls of the pub that was their home. You know, Paddy's Pub in Philadelphia, which is the kind of where the show is based. And they released a couple of whiskies last year on a trial basis to raise money for charity. And they've now come out with a permanent release. They formed a whiskey company. They're sourcing whiskies, and they have decided they're going to go to market with a Irish and American blend. So this is a blend of grain and malt whiskies from Great Northern Distillery, and then rye whiskies from a US distillery. What's the name of it? The name evades me. It's not High West, it's not MGP, it's something else. It'll come to me. And they've got a very affordable blend of these whiskies, not unlike what Keeper's Heart have done, O'Shaughnessy Distilling in Minnesota. 40% ABV, $36. Hard to beat that price when you think about the Irish whiskey prices, but 40% ABV. It's designed for shots, cocktails. Nobody's going to be sitting around with a snifter examining the aroma, I don't think, for too long. It's more a good celebratory whiskey, I think.
This is steering into our fireball conversation at the end of last week. Shabine, a good shooter. Liquid.
Yeah, I know. So those are the three releases. There was also a release that I didn't bring up there, which sold out instantly, which was from Ogham, Ogham, Ogham Irish Whiskey, a rugby-related release. The Levy brothers, Dan and Adam Levy, former Ireland and Leinster players, they and Irish Rugby Sevens, they released second whiskey, 700 bottles, sold out, I think, the same day. So no point in sharing that because it's gone and you'll only be complaining you can't get it. And it'll be more like that, I suspect, as well. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Galway, and I'm delighted to talk about Galway because it's my former home. I lived there for 4 years, loved Galway, started my first business in Galway in 2003, August 31st, 2003. I remember starting my stock-taking business, counting bottles on the floor of the Clare Galway Hotel, just east of Galway City, counting the food in the fridge and the freezers and the bottles on the shelves, August 31st, 2003. So 20 years ago, 20 years and a few months ago, I started that business in Galway. But I love Galway. I lived there for 4 years, 2002, 2006, and I could live there again in the morning. If for some reason Cork told me you're out, you're done, we've had enough, like that's it, extradition treaties are now in force, good luck to you, I'd say, grand, I'll go to Galway. Now I'd be happy enough. You've been to Galway, Lauren?
Oh yeah, I've been to Galway. Last time I was there, I think I said this the other week, was pre-pandemic. 2019 was the last time I was in Galway for an event, and unfortunately I've not been back since then. So we'll have to change that. But I love it. It's just a giant pub. It's amazing. Just the high street, just the one car street is just a giant pub. It is a gorgeous city. Really, really nice. It's certainly a jewel in the Irish crown.
Now, before we dive into Galway, I just want to give you a quick update on a couple of stories and sips things, and then we're going to go back to Galway. I'm going to pull them up here while I have you here and interested. So we have some upcoming things to talk about. So we have a Teeling whiskey blind tasting coming up, folks. We're going to open this up for registration this week. It'll either be Tuesday or Wednesday. Don't worry, there should be plenty of tasting kits available for you. We're going to send out blind tasting kits. I'm going to show you what they look like because I have one here. We're going to lose Lauren in favor of seeing a little kit. There we go. One fell out there. Okay, forget the packaging, but we've got little 4 individual samples, 1, 2, 3, 4. Packaging may vary depending on where you live and how safely we can get it to you, but just know that you'll get the liquid, whether it's presented like this or not, doesn't matter. But you'll get 4 little sample bottles, and each of them is blind presented to you, and Master Distiller Alex Chasko and Global Brand Ambassador Rob Caldwell will lead us on a tasting in early November. They are traveling all over the world, the two of them at the moment, and we're trying to nail down a date for the first week, approximately November. But I thought the best thing we can do is at least get the kits out to you so that when we get the date finalized, we'll have them. Let me see. We've also got, what else have we got? Oh yes, we've got some coasters, which for some reason people are overly excited about. It's kind of like a 2-sided coaster. So it says Stories and Sips on one side, and then the other side it's Place Irish Whiskey here. We'll send out a couple of these with the tasting kits. We'll send these out with our next whiskey release as well, which is from WD O'Connell. We have a couple of pot stills, a pair of pot still whiskies, 2 unique finishes that are being released for our 2nd anniversary of our whiskey club, which is end of October, beginning of November. We will share details of these, the full details of these, in the next week to 9 days or so. We're just finalizing the labels, and I'll reveal the cask finishes, their cask strength. They've gone through a unique finishing process. They taste fantastic, and we're going to present these together as a bundle or individually. So we'll actually do a bundle together with tasting samples from other casks that Dahi O'Connell has in County Waterford. And we'll also include a lovely WD O'Connell glass. We'll have stickers. We'll have coasters. We might even have little glass toppers. We'll have a whole birthday kit available for you for our second anniversary. And that is so we'll release 2 whiskies at the same time. You can buy one, you can buy none, you can buy 2 together, and we'll figure out how to price those as favorably as possible to make sure you can get them as easily as possible. So those are that's our next release from WD O'Connell. And that's it from Stories and Sips. Let me see. Let me come back to Galway then. If you're not a member of our club, by the way, we'd love to have you. Storiesandsips.com. You can join anytime. It's just $20 a month. You can stay for a month, a year, 4 years, 20 years. We'd love to have you. And we've got 8 releases planned for next year. We're already in the works, working on releases. We've got some interesting things to share with you over the coming weeks as well. And there's some that are like a 7 or 8 month long project that has many steps that I'm going to share with you along the way. And that will kick off in the next few weeks, which has a Cork connection and a County Down connection. Cork and County Down are coming together for a release in a very, very unique way. A very, very unique way. Okay, let's go back to Galway. Let me put up the slides.
There's got to be something about Corked Down or something like that. I don't know. There's got to be a play on that.
You can't keep Cork down.
There we are.
Right, Galway is one of my favorite cities in Ireland after Cork, and after Belfast. Okay, we'll give Galway 3rd place.
Saved yourself
right. There. 85,000 people live in Galway, and that makes it the 4th largest city in the Republic, 6th largest city on the island. It is a bustling, as Lauren said. It's a city that is really like one giant pub, and it is a city that there may be nowhere better to be for entertainment on a warm summer than Galway. Every weekend is a different festival. The arts festival, music festivals, the Galway races. There's so much. Every single weekend there's a different festival. Film festival that goes on in Galway. It's a fantastic city, and the pedestrian streets, Shop Street, High Street, Quay Street, leading you from Eyre Square in the centre of the town all the way down to the Corrib River flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. It's a great party city, but in a non-messy way. Like, it's not a messy party.
And it's one of the few places, if you're typically out maybe in Dublin, say for example Belfast, you kind of know exactly where you want to go typically. But Galway is one of those places where if you heard a really good musician playing, because they open obviously the windows and doors, so the music kind of spills into the street, you're pulled in to hear that musician, and you go in and you end up spending a few hours in somewhere you maybe didn't plan to.
I know.
Just really kind of encapsulates you. So yeah, it's a fantastic city for a night out.
And it's a small city, like 85,000 people. Like, there's a lot. So many towns in the US bigger than that. It's a college city. You've got two fairly big by Irish standards colleges, NUIG, National University of Ireland, Galway, and what was the dating me now, the Regional Technical College Galway, which has since become, I'm not sure what their new name for them, but anyway, there's 2 colleges, so it's a big student city as well, which leads to there's a youthful vibrancy to it. It's also maybe one of the most melting pot of cities in terms of the people who come there from all parts of the world and tend not to leave and bring their culture into Galway and infuse Galway with a real cosmopolitan madness. And it's the eclectic range of restaurants and cuisines and bars and shops that have popped up because of the students that have stayed, the tourists that have stayed, and yet Galway, for some reason, somehow has never lost its West of Irelandness. It's still that cultural, iconic, traditional Irish music, Galway accents everywhere you turn. It's lovely.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the food obviously is huge in Galway. It's a really big scene, as you said, kind of a melting pot of different cuisines. But there's still such a huge focus on local cuisine. Like, so many of the restaurants they have the fresh seafood, the oysters from Galway Bay, and they really kind of hone in on that traditional seafood, sort of typical Irish coastal accessible city scene, that they can avail of that food source for them. So it's fantastic.
And that coastal location, being right on the Atlantic seaboard, or in Galway Bay, looking out in the Atlantic, Galway was historically a great port of trade. So wine, sherry, port, all of these barrels found their way into Galway, which would have then meant that those barrels found their way into the one fairly well-known legal distillery that was in the city, which we'll talk about, and then all the illicit distilling that took place out in the west in Connemara. So Galway historically has a distilling, Galway County, and Connemara, which is the region on that west of Ireland, that headland that sticks out into the Atlantic, has a history that's kind of twofold. It's the legal distilling as that took place in the heart of the city, which was what happened in the 1800s when the Excise Act of 1823 kind of encouraged big city and big town and market town distilling and outlawed and made it far more difficult for you to have legal distilling in a back garden. But it didn't mean it didn't continue out in Connemara, so you had kind of both sides of it. But it's got this coastal, there's kind of this wide open, your mind can be wide open standing in Galway, because you can look out to you can look out Galway Bay, and the next bit of land you'd see, if you could see it, would be New York, And so there's kind of this wide, mad, what if nature to Galway that I love.
The kind of, your mind's allowed to wander. What if, what could be?
Many of you might not know that Galway is also home to the Claddagh Ring. So Claddagh is a little fishing village, which is just over the bridge, small little pedestrian bridge, the Salmon Weir Bridge, which will take you from the bottom of that pedestrian street, Quay Street, walk over the bridge, and you're down in Claddagh, a little village. So it's literally a 2-minute walk from the city centre. And that's the home of the Claddagh Ring, which every self-respecting woman, Irish and of Irish descent, will have worn at some point in her life.
I think I had one. I think the first one I had when I was probably about 7 or 8. So yeah, it's a staple growing up.
So let's talk a little bit about the distilling history, and then we'll talk about some of the pubs. So we'll go back and forth. I'll do a quick distillery, and then Lauren, you can lead us on a merry tour of a pub. Excuse me. So when I talked about there being a twofold history of distilling in Galway. When we talk about Galway, we're talking about Galway City and we're talking about Galway County. So Galway is the capital city of Galway, kind of County Galway, a big county in the west coast of Ireland. And Nuns Island Distillery would have been the main distillery in the city, the only licensed distillery inside the city walls, really. There are records of this distillery going all the way back to the early 1700s. But for the most part, the bulk of what we know about distilling that happened right in the heart of city in Nuns Island, which is right 5-minute walk from any of the pubs in the main pedestrian area, is from around 1815 up to 1908. So Nuns Island Distillery was known, it was Purse's Nuns Island Distillery. You'll see an old bottle there from the Galway City Museum. And in the 1800s, they were producing 400,000 gallons of whiskey a year, which at the time was the same output as Bushmills was producing in County Antrim. So of considerable size. And they were sending a lot of their whiskey to England. And in fact, they supplied the Houses of Parliament with whiskey, it was noted, and their labels on their bottle even noted that they were a supplier of whiskey to the Houses of Parliament. Can you imagine when Scotch was being made up north on the same island, yet Ireland was supplying whiskey to the House of Parliament? They distilling fizzled out there in 1908. The distillery closed its doors, and there wasn't a distillery in the city until Mickle started distilling in the city, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Nuns Island Distillery, the buildings are still there. Purse's distillery buildings are still there. They're unused. They're right in the heart of the city. There's been all of these movements and petitions to take this space, which is this classic big stone building look that you see so often in so many cities that look around Ireland, towns around Ireland, that look like these tall kind of warehouses, stone warehouses with many windows. And they would have been grain stores, they would have been malting houses, and the one in Galway in Nuns Island is abandoned. And the movement at the moment is to take these old maker spaces, which is what they were, they produced back in the day, and to counter our trend towards consumption only. As it were, we don't want to just be a consumer-led society. The idea in Galway at the moment is, could we make this space a maker space again? Is it something where we could foster artistic production as opposed to just shops and consumption, which I think is a nice move. And I like that like what happened up in John's Lane in Dublin, where the old Powers Distillery was turned into another maker space, which was the National College of Art and Design, making sculptures, making art, and learning the craft of art in a space where they learned the craft of whiskey making. So fingers crossed that something nice could be done in that space. So Nuns Island Distillery is that's the illegal side of it. The illicit side of it was the poaching making, the whiskey making out in Connemara, which we'll talk more about in a little bit.
I think it's nice as well that cities are kind of having that outlet now, where rather than bring in like a chain, like a really large brand or a large shopping chain, they are kind of trying to give way to those art spaces, music spaces, or even just local sort of shops and areas as well. It's happened a good bit in Belfast with local food vendors. In essentially like a year and a half, there was a couple of food markets popped up that was purely supporting sort of local food vendors, which is brilliant.
Yeah. And you see it like with you drive around Ireland and the number of abandoned mills and the number of and these stone buildings that were built in the 1800s that you couldn't knock them. Like they were built.
Yeah.
God, I mean, you wouldn't have the materials, you wouldn't have the strength of materials today for some reason that they had in the 1800s, because it was just hard work and elbow grease and, I mean, mortar that just cannot be shaken. So these buildings are all around Ireland, and we'll talk about a Hascraw distillery because they also in County Galway, they have rehabbed an old abandoned mill, but we'll come to that in a minute. For now, pub time.
Pub time. I had to start with this one because, to be honest, I don't think it needs much of an introduction. And it was also the first time I went to Galway. It was my first stop, pre and post event, post tasting that I was doing at that point. And it probably, to be honest, still is my favorite bar in Galway, which is of course Sonny Malloy's. And I've seen a few of you kind of mention it already in the comments, so no doubt it's been a popular haunt for many of you who have ventured west to Galway. So Sonny Malloy's is of course an award-winning pub, award-winning whiskey bar. It forms part of the Front Door pub and the Tinora Gin Bar. So it's situated, as I mentioned earlier, High Street, which is the most colourful, kind of the most photographed area of Galway's Latin Quarter. It's a beautiful, colourful street, bustling with pubs, with music coming out from every window. So the pub itself, Sonny Malloy's, is named after Sonny Malloy, who was a legendary Galwegian who once owned a very famous drapery shop in this building. And the building itself dates back to medieval Galway. It dates back to a medieval property built in the 1600s. And the building itself actually formed part of Galway's old city walls as well. So it's kind of teeming with history on every wall in so many different ways. The counter of the bar itself, so the original counter is still the same from when Sonny worked in it as well. So it hasn't been touched in many ways, which is also great. So Sonny himself, he was known to love a whiskey. It was said that his favourite nightcap was a Redbreast 12-year. So every night before he went to bed, that was his little tipple before he went to sleep. So when Sonny's were kind of exploring the option of kind of having their own single cask release, it made sense to partner with Redbreast for what I believe, Barry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the first Redbreast on-trade single cask release that Sonny Malloy's got.
Yeah, it was. I remember the Palace Bar, but they were within a few weeks of each other.
Yeah.
And that is Sonny Malloy there. Let me put him up full screen.
There he is.
There's Sonny. Yeah.
So they've had two Redbreast single cask releases. The first one was a 16-year-old sherry cask, which I think that was released in 2018. which is sold out now completely. You cannot get your hands on that. But the more recent one was a 19-year-old single cask. There was only 570 bottles, I think. No, even less. 570 bottles of the 16 and 478 of the 19-year-old. And Sonny's is also, they claim to be one of the only bars in the world that has the full Middleton Very Rare collection in the pub as well. But any whiskey you can think of, any Irish whiskey you can think of from about the 1940s onwards, not necessarily to buy, but they certainly have it in cabinets and behind the bar. They have it. It's a phenomenal bar. It really, really is.
They've all of the silent distilleries that have been released to date are in there. And ceremonially every year, the every Middleton Very Rare release, the master distiller will come up and do a ceremonial placing of it on the shelf. And everyone will be invited to clap loudly and cheer a man placing a bottle on a wooden shelf. And everyone will toast it, have a drink, and then everyone will go home.
And you can also as well, there's quite a nice touch where if you ask a bartender for a toast to Sonny, you get kind of a personalized certificate that you've kind of been in the bar and you've toasted him at the bar as well. And they have a fantastic, if you check out their website, they've got such a great range of whiskey flights as well. They call them whiskey platters. Anything from kind of a beginner's sort of whiskey, the kind of the classics that you would expect, Jameson and so on. Then they have this sort of the three main styles of whiskey as a platter or a flight, and then a more premium platter as well. So they really do cater to all knowledge levels, all interests. It's definitely my favorite haunt. I had to start strong with Sonny's.
It's the Galway pubs are a bit of an enigma because they are deceiving. So when you look at the front of that pub, you might think, I hope I get one of the 8 seats that exist in this small building. But what you don't realize about Galway's and Galway pubs is that they are some of the biggest pubs you've ever been in your life. That is just one facade of what is really, for all intents and purposes, a city block. Like it goes deep for like 3 or 4 buildings back and then out to the left again. You can actually enter it from Cross Street, which is another street down to the left there. You can enter into the pub and you can go out, you can go, and then you can go up 3 floors. So Galway has so many of these super pubs, the King's Head, Sonny Malloy's, Busker Brown's, the Keys, that are so deceptive from the street. But when you walk in and the front door, which is what Sonny Malloy's is part of, as Lauren said, has many different themes. Like it's got the gin bar, T Nora's, it's got the whiskey bar, Sonny Malloy's, it's got the front door pub itself. And there's all these little, what Ireland does, I think, very well, and Galway does better than anybody else, is the little tuck-ins, the little nooks, the little snugs, the little divided tables. So you've always got somewhere to tuck in. Every time I go to Galway, I'll go in there for a pint of Guinness into Sonny Malloy's, middle of the day. I'll sit by the fire. I'll have a pint of Guinness. I might read the newspaper, or sit there and just kind of watch the world go by. Maybe get an old bowl of soup, and you'll see the range of people that come through the pubs like that in Galway. Every walk of life, it's amazing.
Galway's fantastic for that, as you said. Obviously, it's one of the most kind of popular areas to visit in Ireland, I would say, arguably second to Dublin, certainly as a base, a city base anyway. So you will find everyone from Americans, Australians, French, Spanish, Irish, old and young. Yeah, it's such a mix of people, which I think is a reflection of a fantastic pub. It's a reflection of one which welcomes everyone, all walks of life, all interests, all tastes.
Now, what we haven't mentioned is that all these things we're mentioning today about Galway could perhaps form part of our Whiskey Bus 3 visit to Galway in March 2024. Like they may be accessible. We may do things with them. Like not every, we will be in Galway for 2.5 days. So let's just say like things will be done with lots of these places, right?
A little Galway by the glass sounds good. A little sample in each of the pubs that we talk about tonight, and many more. There's a few honourable mentions as well. We'd be here until 4 a.m. if we covered all of them.
I know. Honestly, there's so much talk about Galway. But what we want to give you a heads up on what's in the city. What are the stops? What are the must-visit places? speaking about distilleries and whiskey, the first distillery to open in the city since Nuns Island was Mickle Distillery. Mickle distilled, they laid down the first whiskey in 2020, so they now have, if they don't have it by now, it's almost 3 years old, it's almost fully whiskey now at this stage. But Mickle Distillery is in Salt Hill, which is just about a mile outside of Galway City. You follow the coast along, you go out to Claddagh and keep following the coast for 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk, and you'll get to Salt Hill, which was a famous, back in the 1950s and 60s, that was where you went on holiday. It was a seaside destination, and it was the most popular destination in Galway right up into the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Mickle Distillery is located in the back of a pub. It's in the Oslo pub off the roundabout in Salt Hill. If you were driving through Galway looking for a distillery with its pot stills staring out a window at you, you won't find it. Mickle is hidden away, squirreled at the back of a pub, the Oslo pub in Salt Hill. And it's a small distillery run by the Grealish family. They've been making poitín, they've been making gin, they've been making Irish cream, and they've been making whiskey in this small little space in the back of their pub. They've also been sourcing whiskies to release while their own whiskey has come of age. So they've released a couple of pots of whiskies, a blended whiskey. Turf and peat forms a big part of their story because the Grealish family have been distilling illicitly for 6 generations. Since 1848 anyway. And they've been, the Mickle Distillery is named for their own great-great-grandfather, Mickle McCara. And they've been distilling illicit poitín since 1848 in Connemara, while Nuns Island was making whiskey. The McCara family were out there, and the Grealishes were making illicit stuff out in the fields, and they've been doing it now for 170 years. So the current generation, Padraig Grealish and the cousins, they are the first legal distillers, and they have some interesting approaches to cask maturation with quarter casks. Again, inspired by those casks that would have come into the Port of Galway, going back all the way to the 1800s, wine casks, sherry casks, but they're really heavily focused on turf and peat. They have their own bog out in Connemara, and they are using that bog for digging up a bit of turf to dry out their barley and to use in Mickle. So really interesting. They're doing really interesting things, and it's a really small artisanal distillery, and well worth a visit if you go to Galway.
And we may or may not have something planned with Mickle. Maybe.
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
Stranger things, indeed.
It would be a shame to go to Galway and not try and do everything. In true Whiskey Bus way.
Exactly. 48 hours in a city to try and fit everything humanely possible into those 48 hours. Sure, we don't need sleep. We can sleep on the bus between cities, between locations.
Anyone who's been on a whiskey bus is used to the morning when we get on the bus the first time in the morning. We say, right, for today's 19 experiences, we'll be doing this. I hope you don't want to sleep. I hope you're not going to be eating for longer than 4 minutes because we got too much to squeeze in.
Stop it. Sure, when there's whiskey to be had, when there's crack to be had, you may as well keep going.
That's it.
Put that up for me. So, Freeney's then, have you been? I'm sure you frequented this spot.
Freeney's is a classic.
Classic, good old classic. I love that. I love the front of it. I think it's such a striking color. Again, it's another pub situated on the bustling high street of Galway, which a lot of them are, in fairness. So Freeney's has been family owned and operated since 1938. They stack a wide range of whiskey. They're also part of Galway's Whiskey Trail, which we'll probably talk about in a couple of minutes. With things to do. I'm sure many are familiar with that as well. So Freeney's is an interesting one because so many people don't realise that it is a pub. For the untrained eye, if you're visiting and you walk past it, there's so many Swiss Army knives on the front and the window and lighters. You could probably walk past it if you didn't know. And there's also a fishing tackle, an outdoor shop just right beside it as well. So they also, I think as well, I read a really interesting fact when I was kind of doing a bit of deeper dive into it. They display fishing cabinets on the wall for local fish which have been caught in Galway Bay. How the logistics of that work, I don't want to know.
There's Phoebe's there. There's all your
There
fishing
we
tackle.
are. The fishing tackle. So really up until as recently as 1976, it was still a pub and a grocer. It was a spirits grocer, and it acted as a grocer, a pub, kind of a sort of a location to serve the people of Galway with whatever they needed. And they also would have supplied trawlermen, of course, in Galway Bay with essentially everything that they needed as well. So it really was a bustling sort of area or bustling building to supply the people of the city. And you'll notice that as well with a few of these pubs that we talk about, certainly the first few anyway, they were grocers. A lot of them with the sort of temperance movement in Ireland in the 19th century had to really diversify their business due to falling spirit sales to really kind of just to accommodate for the loss in spirit sales and loss in revenue. So you'll see that about a lot of these pubs as well. But these Freeney's, they would have packed their own tea, their own sugar, and they also as well at one point would have been sourcing whiskey from the likes of Jameson and Powers as well, obviously to Dublin distilleries initially. So it's another Galway pub with a really interesting history and sort of a family orientated outlook as well, or history I should say.
It's one of those classic pubs. Like another example would be in Dingle, Foxy John's pub, which is part hardware store, part pub. So depending on whether you want to look right or look left, will alter what you end up buying. Whether you buy a tire for the tractor, a length of electrical cord, or a pint of Guinness. But with Freeney's, I mean, if you're in Galway and someone says, "Are you going fishing?" you might say, "I am fishing for pints." And you go into Freeney's and you'll sit there and you'll go fishing for a few pints for the afternoon. And if anybody calls you on the phone and says, "What are you up to?" you could say, "I'm gone fishing," and you are, and you're enjoying a good old pint and a drop of whiskey at the same time.
It's a good. I love that. Fishing for pints.
And this, like Freeney's, is a 15-second walk from Sunny Malloy's, so it's just on the other side of the street, just up the road a little bit, and it's another must stop. So you could actually, I think most of the pubs we're talking about actually are all within a 5-minute walk of each other, actually, conveniently tonight.
And the Galway Whiskey Trail as well. It's just to touch on it briefly. We can come back to it a little bit in more detail later, but it's a way of kind of exploring Galway and its history and its stories through the pubs mainly. And I think all of these pubs, actually, there's 12 currently on the Whiskey Trail. I think all of these pubs are on it. The classic whiskey spots and pubs with a really interesting kind of story and really part of the fabric of the city of Galway.
That's a bunch of pubs have come together to form the Galway the Galway Whiskey Trail. I worked in a pub in Galway. We don't have it, it's not mentioned here. We give it an honourable mention. My first summer in Galway, I worked in a pub called Busker Brown's. So I was in Galway twice. I lived in Galway twice. I lived there from 99 to 2000. And then I lived there again from 2003 to 2006. And the first time I moved there was to work in a hotel as I was a assistant manager in a hotel called the Westwood Hotel. And the hotel was still being built. And so the owner of the hotel owned a pub in the city called Busker Brown's, which is just beside Sunny Malloy's on Cross Street, opposite the front door. And so I spent the first 3 or 4 months while the hotel was being built working in Busker Brown's, which is another super pub in Galway. You walk in the door and there's it's a massive pub on the ground floor, and then there's 2 more floors above it. And I just fell in love with Galway, just working there that summer and getting to know the life, the vibrancy of the city. And it's a city that it's kind of, if you haven't been there, it's hard to explain, but it takes hold of you, and it's a feel-good city. You feel good about it, and there's never any trouble. There's trouble in every city at a certain time of the night with enough drink taken, but it's there's a great vibrancy to the place. It's a bit like, I would describe it like some cities you go out, there's a kind of an element you're thinking, it's a bit dodgy, like, and it's almost like the difference between rugby supporters and football supporters. You know,
Yeah.
you have to separate football supporters and whereas rugby supporters, you know, the Scottish and the Irish are all kind of hold on to each other, laughing at each other as whoever wins, you know. Whereas with football, you kind of be baiting the head off each other. But I think Galway is the rugby supporters kind of city in that sense. It's all kind of friendly going, and everyone's having the crack and having a good time. Let's talk a little bit about another distillery, which isn't a whiskey distillery. So this is another distillery called the Galway City Distillery, and it is a massive, imposing building on Merchants Road, right in the heart of the city again. And it is a distillery that is part white spirits distillery. So you're talking about your gins, your vodkas, your rums. They've also got a cafe, and they've also got Galway's only distilling academy. It's a spectacular building, beautifully done. They have amazing cocktail bar where they source local ingredients for their cocktails. And we're talking about them saying, we couldn't possibly serve a lemon or a lime because they don't grow locally. We're going to go out and find our own things. And they do. So there's a bit of foraging going on. And that's, so you can go there and you can have a cocktail. You can go there and you can distill your own, gin. And there's cocktail courses, an academy for distilling, and a great cafe, restaurant / bar as well. So it's an addition to the distilling scene. I don't think they may have plans for whiskey. I don't think they've officially got plans for whiskey, but they have got their stills running for white spirits, for gin and the like already. So that's another aspect of it. You know, anytime we hear distilling, our ears prick up. We're interested. So another great addition, and also opened by people who have had a lot of experience in the whiskey industry in Ireland as well. So check out Galway City Distillery on Merchants Road, just and again, 5-minute walk from the city centre. All of these things are within a 5-minute walk of each other, remarkably.
Yeah, Galway's another city that's very walkable. I would say it's very on par with Belfast in that sense that you can kind of walk wherever you want to go. Did Galway City, where their building is, did that used to be a pub? Or am I wrong in saying that? No.
In the Galway, I don't know. The Galway City Distillery, I don't know what it was. I'm not sure.
Because it looks very similar. There was a really, really nice cocktail bar in Galway. I did an event in it. That's actually when I was there. I did an event in it, and the name has completely escaped me.
Okay.
But it looks very, very similar to that. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look that one up just to content my mind. So Garvin's then is another fantastic whiskey bar. We're really starting with kind of the three horsemen of the Galway whiskey bars. You could argue there's many more, but these are kind of my top three. So it was established in 1937 by Charles Garvin Sr. Again, it was originally a spirit grocer combined with a public house serving the people of Galway. So very similar to Freeney's that we just spoke about. This is another building with such an interesting history as well. The current physical footprint of the building, again, dates back to fortified Galway of 1650. And they did, a number of years ago, there was renovations were carried out on the offices upstairs, just upstairs of the bar. And they unearthed kind of old traditional fireplaces. There was raw walls from the medieval period were exposed as well. So again, if the walls could talk, they would tell a great story, very similar to the other pubs. So I mentioned this earlier, a lot of pubs were spirits grocers due to the temperance movement in Ireland in the 19th century. And they also, I found an interesting fact about Garvin's as well. Not only would they have bottled their own whiskey, they bottled their own Guinness as well, allegedly so. Which I thought was quite interesting. And you can still see the remnants of the grocers in the bar, very similar to what you showed there, Barry, with the likes of Sonny Malloy's. You can kind of see the remnants, the old shelves, the bar counter, the kind of shelving in the back, which kind of takes up most of the front of the bar, the front of the main bar area. Really cool thing I noticed as well, if you go onto their website, they have what they call a whiskey expert bot, which you can submit questions to. Have you seen this? Yeah. You can submit questions to it, and it supposedly answers any question that you have about Irish whiskey. So I did it earlier just out of pure curiosity to see if it worked, and it actually does. It gives you an answer straight away. Now, how up to date it is, I don't know. I think I asked something like, I'm interested in a mildly peated Irish whiskey. Personally, I'm not, but I just did it to see what they come back with, and I think they came back with was it Tullamore, Phoenix, Kilbane and Connemara, Now, obviously, there's so many more peated whiskies that they could have picked from now, but
I wonder how that operates. Yeah, I wonder what they use there. Is that a chat bot or a kind of a AI built-in chat bot? Yeah, interesting.
Try it out. It was really interesting. I saw
It
it as a
is.
tab on the website, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. They also have quite a nice story about a barman who used to work there, Nicholas Calori. He was called, who was known to have kind of a great humor, a very lively wit, and he loved Shakespeare, he loved Dickens, and the Irish Times. So he used to really engage with kind of deep conversations with any punters that came into the bar. He was kind of a thought-provoking character, and he eventually encouraged his journalist friend. He was a journalist and a friend of his, to write a book called The Days and Nights in Garvin's. And I think it's a book, you can actually read it in the bar. I believe you can ask the bartenders for it, and you can flick through it and have a read of it with a whiskey in hand if you so wish, or a pint. And it essentially just tells tales of really interesting characters who would come into that bar, which I thought was quite nice as well. So again, similar to the likes of Sonny's, they have their whiskey platters kind of catering to all knowledge levels. They also have a few of their own releases as well. They have a Pars 15-year-old single cask. Are you looking at the website?
There's the 4 of them there. That's their 4 releases, yeah.
The 4 of them, yeah. So they have the Pars 15-year-old single cask. We have a Mickle small batch release as well. They have their own Garvin's Grocers 16-year malt as well. And then the other one was the Galway Hooker, was it? Was the 4th one?
Yeah. Galway Hooker, 8-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, so they have a few of their releases as well, which you can obviously order in the bar or order by the bottle.
Great whiskey selection. One of the best whiskey selections in Galway, honestly. And great night. You have great sessions in Garvin's because they often have music in the bar at the same time. They have a little stage area. You walk in the door, bar's on your right, stage on your left. And I've been in there many a night till the wee small hours, holding on to whoever's standing near me, just swaying with a whiskey in hand. And they have some great displays of old whiskies as well in the cabinets beside the bar. Very knowledgeable staff. I've always found whenever I've asked behind the bar if they have a whiskey, some bars, they'll ask you to repeat it. Like, what did you say? Like, Powers what? They know the whiskey in Garvin's, and they'll go straight away and get it.
That's a big, I think it's something that really stands out when a bar claims to be a whiskey bar and, with a significant collection. It's the one thing that will create a returning customer is that knowledge. If you're looking for someone with that knowledge and they have it, you're going to keep coming back. I know what you mean. I've had that situation before where kind of you see the poor bartender scanning the back shelves trying to look for what you're after. God love them.
It's one of my biggest annoyances, the bars. And look, it's hard you can't blame the staff, but there are bars that call themselves whiskey bars, and you go in and you're excited and you want to support them and you want to give them your custom, and you'll ask about something and nobody will have a clue. Like nobody will know. And the manager's not here at the moment. I don't need the manager. I just need to know if you have this whiskey. Yeah. Now, if somebody didn't know their whiskeys and they were coming in as a tourist, like I was in Killarney recently. Oh, it was embarrassing. I was cringing, and I won't even name the place I was in, but I was sitting having a bite to eat lunch, and I could see there was 5 Americans sitting at the bar, and you could tell they were ready to spend some money. They could see all the whiskeys behind the bar, and they spotted, forgive the pun, the spot whiskeys, and they asked the bartender. They said, "Why are all those different colors? Why are they called the spots?" And you could tell the bartender was kind of looking like, what are they pointing at? Anyway, he grabbed one of the bottles and he starts just reading out the label. Well, green spot that's just bourbon barrels. And then he grabs another one. And first of all, it's not. And then he grabs another one and goes, and this is just yellows, Malaga casks. And then no sooner had he just read out the labels and put them back on the counter, he kind of disappeared. He kind of ran away because he knew that he was going to be asked another question. And it's an awful shame that the training isn't available, the information isn't available, or the passion isn't there from the ownership or the management that anyone who's put... imagine if you were a car salesman and you were put to sell a car, but you were given no training in any aspect of the car.
No.
and you weren't told whether it's diesel or petrol. And the first person goes, "Is it a diesel car?" And they're like, "Is it a diesel?" Sure, look, we'll open the fuel tap there. We'll have a look. Oh, it's electric. Sorry, wrong. Yeah, sorry. You know what I mean? Like I hate that. And there's a few bars in Cork that call themselves whiskey bars, and there's no bigger annoyance because I've been in there and into some of these bars, and I had to repeat the word redbreast 3 times to one bartender. They'd never heard this word in their life. Like,
it wouldn't happen in any other industry. Like, that's the perfect example is a car dealership. You wouldn't send someone on the floor of a car dealership with absolutely zero training on the product that they're trying to sell. And I think it's something that's definitely, it's got a lot worse post-pandemic with the amount of really highly skilled staff, bartenders, bar managers who did unfortunately leave the industry, who would have been armed with that knowledge. And I mean, everyone has to start somewhere, but it is such a young generation now. I'm seeing the exact same in Belfast, that they just don't know what's on the back bar, that they're going and asking someone more senior. And you're right, it's on both the management, but also on the brands to get out there as well. If they want people to sell their product, they need to be hitting the ground and educating people. It's the only way.
It's a very tough one, but I will give it that they deserve a big shout out, and that's the Dead Rabbit in New York for their focus on whiskey training. And to his credit, Mark McLaughlin, their director of whiskey now, I will say, has put together an unbelievable training program for their staff, which they have to go through. Like, they have to go through this. I don't know if it's a 6 or 12 week, but they go through this program where if they complete this and all the other modules over a period of time, like, they can earn a trip to Ireland to go and visit Ireland and experience it. But the basics of Irish whiskey, like, let alone the brands, like, even before you ever get to what came out last week, which my full-time job is whiskey, and I have trouble keeping up with what came out last week. And I don't expect every bartender to know it, but I at least expect, if I ask somebody what's a single pot still whiskey in a whiskey bar, that they can tell me. I was in Scotland not too long ago, and I tell you, there's a reverence for whiskey in Scotland that Ireland still has to go a little bit further to keep up with. Like, there's a reverence for single malt, there's a reverence for Scotch in bars that they can explain it, and I think there's maybe a little bit more love for it at a service level, and I'd love to see more of that in Ireland.
Yeah, and again, I think it's also really important for bars to incentivize their staff in that way. Now, it's slightly different in Ireland, but even just the incentive of, sell X number of bottles of this whiskey, and you'll get to go for an overnight in the town of the distillery and visit, a behind the scenes. It's the draw of that just works so well, and I think it's definitely something that should be implemented a lot more across the board.
Lauren, can I get you to turn down your speaker a small bit if you don't mind? I'm going to talk about another distillery now in County Galway. So this is an hour east of Galway City, and you're still in County Galway. A Haskra distillery. I should have written it up there on the screen, but I'll put it in the comments because it to read it, you will not pronounce it the same way as I say it, I can tell you. A Haskra distillery in East Galway. This is a fantastic transformation of a old abandoned mill building that has been turned into a 10 million euro distillery, triple copper pot still distillation. It just commissioned their stills in the last week, and they are open for tours. Garrett and Michelle McAllister, the husband and wife duo that had the vision for this abandoned mill building. They're not from Galway, they're not from a Haskra, but they wanted to get involved in the food and drink scene in Ireland, living in Asia, came back from Hong Kong, and decided this was their spot. Their kids thought they were absolutely mental and nuts, but they went and did it anyway. And a couple of years later, I mean, they have transformed this building. So I took this photograph from across the road in a cafe that they also have converted into really their distillery shop and their distillery cafe in the town. And it's across the road. And I'm taking this out a window, and right beside the window, they have this fantastic framed set of photographs that show what that view looked like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you just take a look at that, and then you look out the window and you see where it is today, and it's a fantastic juxtaposition of time and vision. In any case, I had a tour of it a couple of weeks ago and was blown away. The amount of money that's invested in that is unbelievable. The roof, you'd miss it if you didn't look closely, but that's an entire solar paneled roof. So the distillery is aiming to be to be completely energy neutral, in the sense of they're going to create their own energy, and all of the heat generated on site from the distilling and the brewing process is going to be used, recycled, that heat, turn it into power, which is going to be used to heat the boilers. And it's a fantastic, like, it's an engineering marvel, and it's the first of its kind anywhere in Ireland, the construction of this. And beautifully restored. The stonework, the pointing on the stonework is absolutely fantastic. They have also released whiskies while they've been waiting for the distillery to come online. I've got a few samples here. Uish Irish whiskey, which is a little blend. See if Uish is one of their blends here. They've also got a gin, beautifully designed Zin gin. I've got to hide my eyes. The camera keeps picking up my eyes. Zin gin, and they've also got more. Where's the other one? We've got more whiskey here somewhere.
That green screen's not doing its job very well here.
No. They have can't find it there. Where is it? No. It hasn't come to me. Anyway, I should have been prepared. Again, unrehearsed. But they've got Can Colla is the name of their brand. They have a 19-year-old single malt, 20-year-old single malt, double distilled. They have an 11-year-old single malt, 11-year-old blend as well. So a Hascro distillery, who knows, Whiskey Bus could play a role with a Hascro, could do something.
It's a gorgeous building. I love that kind of very gentle sort of golden glow on the pot stills there from the photo you took.
Yeah, it's stunning. Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. And if you want a little tour of it, go to my Instagram. Go to Irish Whiskey Barry on Instagram. You'll find a little 1 minute, 1.5 minute tour of a Hascro distillery. Well worth checking out. All right.
Beautiful. Moving on, more pubs. This is a great old tour of Galway we're doing here. We're going from pub to distillery, out of the city, back into the city.
Flying it.
Everything in between. So O'Connell's is another fantastic sort of whiskey institution in Galway City. It's another perfect example of what you said earlier, Barry, about the outside looks very deceiving for what you find further in the pub. So O'Connell's is just located, it's on the east side of Ayr Square, which is kind of a city public park in the heart of Galway. Another pub which was once a grocery and obviously operated as a small bar at the same time, but it's solely been a pub since the 1970s. If you go inside, you'll see beautiful tiled floors, antique lighting, stained glass windows, kind of the solely wooden seating, and they've got a really nice ornate tin ceiling as well. So kind of all of the classic features, again, of the grocers were retained, even with a slight bit of refurbishment. It was voted I think it was the best outdoor space in last year's, actually, 2022's Irish Pub Awards. So the outdoor space is incredible. It's almost like it's nearly like a little city on its own, or a little street on its own, with the hardware sign, which is kind of a nod to its past of being a grocer. You've got the Dough Brothers, if anyone's been in Galway. It's a fantastic pizza place in there as well. And they also have a little gin lane, just really nice sort of area outside. Really, you'd feel like you weren't even in Galway if you head to the back of the pub. There's got they have a cabinet of curiosities as well, little trinkets and mirrors and old photographs in there. And the expansion happened, I think it was around 2006, which they delved into that kind of outdoor space. So again, it's another great spot for live whiskey, live music and whiskey, fantastic pints, and yeah, another great spot. None of these are bad spots, in fairness, for a stop.
I put up a picture here of the outside of O'Connell's because
I thought I had one outside there, actually. Lovely big Guinness sign there as well, kind of like old sort of lamp posts as well. Just very, it's a great outdoor space. I thought I had one there. Apologies. There we go. Yeah. You had
one job. You had one job was to put up pictures.
One photo. Missed one photo.
There's the outdoor space on O'Connell's on a rare dry day.
a rare dry day. There's heaters. As long as you've got heaters in a pub, you can frequent it at any time of the year. Don't need to worry about the weather.
And O'Connell's is just off Eyre Square, and it is Eyre Square is, or its official name is Kennedy Park, I think, isn't it? It's Kennedy Park.
Yeah.
It's where JFK came to Galway in 1963, early 1963. He visited Galway, and he had a little rally there, a little speech there in Kennedy Park in Eyre Square, which is just, again, 5 minutes walk from all these other locations we've shared, Sonny Malloy's and Freeney's, for example, even Galway City Distillery, 10-minute walk. So all super, super close. For those of you who are on our whiskey bus, you will be able to look out your window of your hotel and see O'Connell's because you're staying on Eyre Square in the Hardiman Hotel, right? Yep.
Absolutely. Right in the heart, right in the centre. Absolutely. Open your window in the morning and you'll be awakened by the sound of fiddles.
I am going to share a distillery that is in planning in Galway that hasn't yet been built, and is quite an exciting one coming up. And it is a project that has been launched by a very famous man in Galway. His name is Joe Connolly. He's a famous Galway hurler, captain of the Galway hurling team. And he and his son Barry have planned to build a €20 million distillery in Connemara, in Carna, which is in West Galway. And it's called Knockbui, which means Yellow Hill, Knockbui Whiskey Distillery and Heritage Centre. And their planning permission has been granted. They're in fundraising stage at the moment. They've been going to America with their hat in their hands, looking for people to throw money into their hat to build this. They need a lot of money to build it. But the plans for the site are quite adventurous. So they've got a plan for a distillery, a bonded warehouse, a bottling hall, a tasting bar, as well as a heritage centre, a shop, and a cafe. There'll be 30 full-time jobs. Well, their goal is to have 30 full-time jobs in the first 5 years. So they've got their planning permission. This is being backed by the Irish language kind of development agency called Údarás na Gaeltachta, which is a kind of a semi-state body, which is tasked with driving business in rural areas, especially Irish-speaking areas, and Údarás na Gaeltachta in the west of Ireland. So they're supporting the development of Knockbui because it'll bring much-needed tourism and traffic to an area that would have been decimated by immigration from the 1800s all the way to the present day. So not everybody needs to stay in the centre of Galway to do everything. Get in the car, get in the bus, and go out to Carna in West Galway, and you'll see Knockbui. And I thought there was a really interesting quote. Again, what I love about any distillery or whiskey business is the people behind it and the characters that you meet. Joe Connolly is a character. When he was asked about the plans for the distillery and the environmental impact it might have on the area, he had a purely Irish quote about the building, and he said, Connolly was keen to highlight the distillery would take its responsibilities to the environment, quote, deadly seriously. That's all I need to know. Deadly seriously.
Deadly seriously. Very typically Irish. Another thing to note actually about the Galway, this one that's planned, and the Haskra and Mickle, for those who are not familiar with the Irish language, they are quite difficult to pronounce. People might not know how to pronounce them.
No.
Which I think I think it's something that's being discussed about, kind of making brands a little bit more. Well, no, I suppose you shouldn't really shy away from the language or the heritage of the island, but you should at least be a little phonetic.
If you want to get funding, like if you build a business, if you want to get funding from Údarás na Gaeltachta, you have to have an Irish name. So when you're in a Gaeltacht area, an Irish speaking area, you are mandated to produce all of your materials in the Irish language, as well as the English language. So yeah, but it is a tough one. Like Knockbui, that's a tough one for people to get their heads around. Knockbui, especially when a Haskra, yeah. But I suppose we shouldn't be worried about it. We should make it such a well-known thing that people, it's just a second nature to people.
Exactly. There's no doubt in anyone's mind as how it's pronounced. Exactly. Maybe a little kind of aid on the back of the label or something on how to pronounce it.
Phonetically, yeah.
Phonetically, yeah, exactly. give people a helping hand along the way until it is familiarized. How many pubs are we on now? We're doing well here. We're still vertical, even though we visited quite a few pubs.
We're still going.
Still going.
Where are we going now?
Our tour of Galway. So this one I would say is edging into more of the kind of, I want to say, contemporary, modern sort of. Yes, it does have a great selection of whiskey, but it is also very much renowned for their cocktails, which is Ampucan. They have won Best Cocktail Bar in Galway a number of times. They've won a host of awards, actually, from the Irish Craft Cocktail Awards, the Irish Bar Awards for their cocktails, their best use of social media, for example, as well. And kind of a best spot to watch a match, like a rugby match or a Gaelic match, for example, as well. So Ampucan's another one which is located just off Ayr
We're going to have to stop you with that pronunciation, though. We're going to have to.
How do you pronounce it?
It's Ampucan.
Ampucan.
So yeah,
Pucan,
I know. I know the Irish language wouldn't be popular up there now in Antrim.
No, let's not go down that road now. Come on. Anyway,
you got the two fadas. Look, you got the fada over the U and the fada over the A. So you got the Pucan.
This is like how you pronounce Bushmills, which is wrong, might I add.
I would say that the majority of people pronounce it Bushmills, but you pronounce it Bushmills.
Yes, which is the correct way.
I will listen to you on Bushmills because you are from there.
Well, not directly there, but close enough. Anyway, so
speaking of pronunciations of Irish language.
Speaking of which, I'll get you.
Give her a stick in the comments there. Go for her. Get her in the comments.
Stop it. Anyway, Cian's agreeing with you, Barry. It's all right.
It's all right. Listen, you gave it a college try.
There's a college try. Thank you. Anyway, back to the matter in hand, which is the bar itself. It was originally opened in 1985, but and it was initially kind of a more sort of, I guess, traditional pub, traditional Irish music. There is still a platform for that there in the bar, but it was completely renovated in 2014 when it was taken over by the Connacht Hospitality Group. And since then, it has become that kind of really, as I said, modern, bustling sort of area. They're very, very well known for their whiskey cocktails, their kind of vibrancy of the bar. It's very modern. You get cracking food in there as well. I think no, I have been in there. I was in there at the very end of my night, so my memories of it may not be the best. But it's a great bar. It's a cool bar, and again, walking distance to all of the others that we have mentioned.
They also have the best stairs in Galway, which is
Yeah.
Pucan's a good spot. A younger spot than the others.
Very much so. That they've taken inspiration there from the Bow Street with it's almost like, you know, the Guinness, or not Guinness, the Jameson chandelier.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There was a bar in Galway on Ayr Square, and I think it's gone now, but it was where I had my first ever drop of Middleton Very Rare, was in Galway. Back when I saved up enough money to either feed myself for a week or have a sip of whiskey, and I had it in Galway. So Galway is a special spot to me, and I think it sounds like for a few people they've been to Galway and have gone back again and again and again. They loved it so much.
Yeah.
How long are we there, Lauren, on the whiskey bus?
2 days. So we'll be there 18th to the 20th of March. So really just obviously just missed St. Patrick's Day, but we've got much more entertaining things to do on St. Patrick's Day with JJ Corey, as we all probably know, in Kilrush. So we'll be there just right after St. Patrick's Day. There'll still be an unbelievable energy about the city. The pubs will be bustling. There'll be people from all over the world. It'll be fantastic. No better time to visit the west of Ireland and Galway in particular.
What's going on with Irish whiskey experiences? What have we got in the works at the moment that's still open for booking?
In the works, well, we're down to the very last couple of spaces for Whiskey Bus 3. And honestly, we haven't really touched upon everything that we will do in particular in Galway. But let me tell you, it's something that you will not want to miss out on. When you see the photos and the videos of that going up, all in Fans of America, all across our socials, everything, you will regret that you didn't hit that book button or that reserve your space button. So that's still in the works, which is now 5.5 months away, but roughly so, yeah. Which will work around very quickly. So that's kind of still behind the scenes for now. And what's kind of taken over my life at the minute is our upcoming inaugural whiskey weekend to Belfast, which is happening on the 4th of November. We're over 80% booked now. So if anybody fancies one, a trip to Ireland, or two, a trip to Belfast, if you're already on the island, why not join us? Why not? It's brilliant value. You're going to get an unbelievable insight into the two distilleries which have brought distilling back to Belfast for the first time in almost 90 years. You're going to taste the very spirit, the first new mix spirit distilled in the city in almost 90 years. And we're also going to be the first ever public tour to go behind the scenes of McConnell's brand new distillery in the A wing of the historic and very much infamous Crumlin Road Jail. First ever public tour to see those stills. So we spent a day with those guys, with the team there, Sarah Kennedy, who I know many of you know from the group, and their head distiller, Graham Miller as well. And then Titanic, of course, as I said, the first new mix spirit in Belfast in 90 years, will be joined by their head distiller, Damien Rafferty, for a behind-the-scenes tour right down into the pump house. You'll see the massive old Titanic motors, the pump house that used to clear 23 million gallons of water in 110 minutes, which is insane. And they're still down there. And when I was with Titanic, I was there, when was that? July, end of July, start of August maybe. And Damien, he actually said that they will, when they have, obviously they don't currently have their own whiskey just yet. They literally just opened at the start of August, or started distilling at the start of August. They will be, they believe, the only whiskey, certainly the only Irish whiskey in the world to be aged below sea level. So they're going to keep some of the casks down in the pump house to age them, which is amazing. So really excited for that weekend. And then we'll crown off everything with a tasting from Two Stacks upstairs, private room in the Duke of York, with our own bar as well. Private bar, might I add. Don't even have to go down the stairs for a pint. Everything's there.
Happy days, happy days. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Belfast. It's going to be a good few days. Really looking forward to that. And then our whiskey bus in March. Looking forward to that. We will have more whiskey buses in 2024, which we haven't announced yet. But we will first. Let's get this one sold out, and then we'll tease what the next one might be.
The others. Definitely.
But there are plans in the background anyway for more. So
many moving pieces. So the best way for everyone, if you haven't already, is just sign up with your email over on our website. It's on the screen there, and you'll be the first to hear about whiskey buses, whiskey weekends, everything in between. You'll be the first to know.
Brilliant stuff. And folks, let us know if you have any questions on anything we talked about tonight on Galway. If you want any tips on any other place that you're planning to visit, let us know while we're here for the next few minutes. And if there's any questions on any of the whiskies we talked about, I might pour a different whiskey. I might find a different whiskey now for my next one, just to kind of round off the night. Did you move on to your Redbreast already? Did you?
Yep, I'm on my Redbreast now. I finished up the Two Stacks on the Redbreast. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to Killowen's US release, which was their 5-year-old rum and raisin That was coconut rum cask and PX sherry butt finish. This, I believe, is still available from Folsom Wine and Spirits. This is their 5-year-old rum and raisin inspired coconut rum cask and PX sherry butt, 55% ABV, single malt. And that's their sourced whiskey. It's not their own whiskey, but the rum and raisin casks, many of you have enjoyed those. They've had a 5-6-year-old rum and raisin. I haven't tried this US one yet.
I love the Clone rum and raisin. It's probably my favorite, actually. From theirs, beautiful drop, such an easy sipper. Bob's also moved on to one of my favorite whiskies, Blue Spot. Nice choice, Bob. Great choice for us today.
Mark wants to know the best place for a whiskey in Kenmare. Right, Mark, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the Park Hotel in Kenmare, right? And you're going to ask for John Moriarty. And John Moriarty is the barman at the Park Hotel in Kenmare. You're going to tell him Barry Chandler from Stories and Sips sent you in, and that he should recommend something from behind his bar, but also where else in Kenmare you should go, because John is tuned into everything that goes on. John Moriarty in the Park Hotel. And the Park Hotel is just up the top of the town. You can't miss it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful hotel. Have a whiskey in there. John's got a great selection. He knows everything about Scotch, Irish whiskey, American whiskies. And what he doesn't know about Kenmare is not worth knowing. So he'd be your man. John Moriarty. Friend of ours in our group too.
He is, that's right. Simple as that. There you are.
That's all you need.
What one-stop shop for everything in Kenmare?
That's just me passing the buck.
It's like, sorry, but brain power is all focused on Galway for tonight. Nothing around that. Excuse me.
That's lovely. What else is going on in the world of whiskey for us? Trying to think. I can't think of anything else at the moment. I feel like we've touched on all the stories and sips releases, Irish whiskey experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. I can still hear myself there behind you. Yeah, that's
might be old Sinead. Sinead might be it.
Already? We haven't even been to the Keys.
Oh, yeah, we got more to go.
There's one more. We have one more. Now, you may be better placed to talk about this, because this is the only one out of all the ones that we've spoken about that I actually haven't been in, and you have.
Okay.
In the Keys, but it's one of the oldest bars in Galway. I think it's over 400 years.
The Keys is another super pub, yeah. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
I don't mind.
I think all the research done.
Me, yeah. I was more leaning on your personal experience of the bar, because I haven't been inside it, but I'll tell you about it.
Go on, so tell me what you learned online.
Besides being in the bar, I can tell you that it's I don't want to say it's the second oldest in Galway, but it's definitely one of the oldest establishments anyway. So over 400 years, the Keys has been serving the people of Galway. If you are after music, this would probably be the top recommendation to go to. There's 7 nights of live music. And they're really, really good at supporting local Irish talent. So Irish talent from all over the island, who play everything from kind of rock music, traditional Irish, anything from the 60s onwards will feature in this bar. So it's the upstairs. I think I did actually show a photo of it. Upstairs is a music venue. It's a really, really sort of cool music venue. You've got the beautiful kind of Gothic arches in there as well, the stained glass windows, the pews as well. So a musical and whiskey church combined into one.
And would you believe that's actually the downstairs? So there's actually another floor above this that's a private venue that does like concerts and things, but this is kind of the main public area. So you walk in the door and then you go down the main door will lead you to kind of a balcony that you look down on this. You look down on the on the bar below and the stage, and underneath the stage, you can't see it right there, but there's more seating down there. There's kind of a kitchen area and a buffet kind of carvery style setup down there at the back as well. Massive
They have
venue.
it's Galway Girl Restaurant, I think it is. So I was saying earlier at the start, kind of, even though Galway is kind of a melting pot of different nationalities and subsequently cuisines, they really focus on kind of traditional seafood, Galway Bay oysters, and that's really the focus of their menu in the Galway Girl Restaurant. But I read as well, they have an organ that's on stilts or something as well, like a classic organ on stilts. Yeah, so just fantastic for live music. That will be the spot to go.
Always heaving, like it's where every hotel concierge is going to tell the guests to go. Every tourist gets pointed to the quays, and the turnover of that pub must be astronomical because they are hoofing out Guinness at a rate of knots. It's unbelievable the size of that place and how much business they do. And again, another deceiving place from the outside, small little shop front, but then you walk inside and you realize. So this was actually, to the best of my knowledge, this was a church that was in England. The inside of the pub was actually a church that was dismantled piece by piece and brought over to Galway and rebuilt inside the building here.
That's insane. That's what you're saying there about it being really busy. That's why I didn't go in. I literally couldn't get in. It was packed to the ceiling in there. I was like, I'm not trying to fight and hold a creamy pint of Guinness through a crowd of people. Not tonight.
Well, when I was working in Galway, when I had the stock taking business, the inventory control business, where we go around to the pubs and we count all, like I had a lot of these pubs were my clients back in the day, counting their stock and producing reports to generate their profit margins and show them where there was variances, because in Ireland there's no such thing as free pouring whiskey or free pouring spirits. It's all measured. Everything is measured. So you can calculate what you've lost fairly easily, right? Because you know that what you've lost has either been stolen, broken, lost, right? Like there's ways you can start to narrow down your losses. So our job was to figure out what was the variance for a pub week on week or month on month, and the busier pubs would have to come in every week. But the story would go around Galway, and many people told us this story, and I don't know if it was an urban legend or whether it was a true story or not, but the story went that years before we had started doing our jobs in Galway, that the Keys pub was they were going through a terrible time of losses. They couldn't figure out how they were losing week on week. They were down every week on their takings, how much they should have taken in based on how much stock was gone off the shelves, So the story went that they brought in a guy, an auditor, to try and figure out where is it all going, And so they brought in this auditor, and he counted all the stock, and he went through all the cash registers that were in the bar. He went through all the reports, added up all the reports, worked out how much money had been taken in, worked out how much money had been spent to buy all the alcohol, worked out how much was on the shelves. And he was basically saying, listen, he goes, I can't work it out. He goes, it's all adding up. He said, everything is tallying perfectly. I don't know how you're losing money. He said, it's an absolute mystery. He said, I've counted all the stock. I've looked at all your invoices, and I've gone through the reports on all 7 of your cash registers. And the manager said, whoa. We've only got 6 cash registers. So what was after happening was somebody was bringing in their own cash register. They were using that. And in the ultimate test, they were operating off their own cash register that they brought in themselves. And they were putting all the cash into that. And at the end of the night, they were taking home their cash register.
Out the door, under the arm. Stop. That's brilliant. That is brilliant. That's I was going to say daylight robbery. Well, it is in a way. That's just the best. The most.
Now, I've heard this story since, and it's been attributed to a couple of different places. So I don't know if it's an urban myth or not, but it's a great story anyway that used to do the rounds in the world of hospitality. Just because you think you know every trick in the book, how is somebody going to rob you? You never think they're going to bring in their own cash register.
That is genius. How would you get away with that nowadays? Card machine, your own card machine.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Something on your phone. Yeah. You know, have you seen the little tiny like white devices?
Square
Yes.
readers, yeah.
Yep. Bring them around. Here's your pints, lads. Thank you. Yep, that's great. I wouldn't want to
I
be the one
do
to buy it.
I do think that that's created a whole new area of fraud or of difficulty accounting, because I've often seen in pubs somebody will serve up 2 pints, right? And they know in their head that's €10. So they just say €10 and they come with the machine. But you don't know if anything's actually been logged into the cash register, right? So has the stock been depleted accordingly, or have they just taken the money, And so
Yeah.
if you don't link the two together, like some bars, then their machine will only activate when you've pressed credit card on the cash register.
Yep.
So now you've got both sides of the book.
I know. It's a weird one. And also what I've noticed as well, again, just the likelihood that we're moving towards a cashless society is, you know how it used to be in the front of certain pubs, restaurants, shops, whatever, it said, like we take card. Now it's we take cash, because so
I
many
know.
places don't take cash anymore. It's just crazy how it's kind of flipped in no length of time.
There's a big movement to stop businesses only taking cards. Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't want to be tracked. They don't want their spending logged anywhere.
Avoidance. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like when when you go into an establishment or whatever it might be and nobody takes card, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Weird one. Don't want to pay the fees either.
Richard wants to know, what's the pub in Galway that has a downstairs area? I'm not sure. A lot of them have downstairs areas. First trip. Downstairs area, Galway pubs. There's one in
like an open downstairs area, or
there's one in the in the Hardiman Hotel. They have a downstairs pub in the Hardiman Hotel. There's, where else is downstairs? I mean, the Keys is technically downstairs. There's not a lot of basements in Galway, because you're literally on the river, like you're on the Corrib River. So if you go down too deep, you'll need your scuba gear.
I'm trying to find remember I said earlier, was Galway City Distillery a pub?
Yeah.
It's going to really annoy me that I can't think of the name of that bar. I literally did an event in this bar. It was a gorgeous bar. It was huge, absolutely huge bar. And you had the main kind of level, and then above you, there was like a circular, you could look up and there was seating area around. That's going to really annoy me.
Could have been the Keys, Richard, if you say the Spanish Quarter. I mean, all of these pubs we're mentioning are technically the Spanish Quarter. So the Spanish, there's an area down by the river. So these pubs these streets lead down to the River Corrib, and the River Corrib flows at great speed through the city. And right on the quay there at the bottom of the street is an archway called the Spanish Arch, which dates all the way back to the 1300s. It's a stone archway, and Christopher Columbus famously passed through it in 1477. He visited Galway and walked under that arch. And so that area has been nicknamed the Spanish area or Spanish Quarter around the Spanish Arch, but kind of leads up Quay Street, coming up from the Keys. So the Keys is the only pub I know that goes underground or kind of goes downstairs in that area personally, but there could be some other ones that I'm not familiar with.
I've remembered the name.
Yeah.
Tribeton.
What's it called?
Tribeton. Tribeton. It's closed now. It's permanently closed. Where did you say Galway City Distillery was? What road?
Merchants Road.
Yeah, that's right. That is it then. I was right. Yeah.
Never heard of it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was because when you showed the photo and I kind of looked up and you could see the circular sort of design where you can look kind of through to the ceiling. Yeah, Tribeton.
Okay.
It closed, I think, just right after. Yeah. They didn't survive COVID.
Okay. Now it's a distillery.
I knew you recognised it. I was going to lose sleep over that tonight if I couldn't remember the name of that bar. I'm glad I got there.
But Galway anyway. So I'm looking forward to us visiting Galway, and I think people often ask where should they go when they fly in when they're visiting Ireland. Where should they spend the most time? And my recommendations is always to get out of Dublin as fast as possible for a couple of reasons. One, it's a big, bustling European city that you'll get in every bustling European country. And it doesn't, to me, give you the true representation of Ireland. And so I'm always quick to say go as far west as you can possibly go in the time that you have. And if you can get to Galway, it's only a 2.5 hour drive from Dublin, get to Galway. Because Galway will show you Ireland, and you keep driving west from Galway out to Connemara. I mean, 5 miles from Galway, and you'll see countryside that you'll think was painted by an impressionist painter, and you'll wonder how is this 5 miles from a city. So it's where I'd say that's real Ireland. The west of Ireland is real Ireland to me.
I think out of Cork's the same though. Like Clonakilty, for me, is the epitome of real Ireland. I love the place.
So you're going to live there. You're going to move there. You're about to buy a house there.
I am. I'm already looking at houses. I love the place. I think that, like, I've always said that to people. It's so nice in recent years that everyone. I mean, Dublin's. I mean, they're not. This is nothing against Dublin. It's just a but it is just a city. You're right. I feel like we always come on here and attack Dublin, and it's not a true representation of Dublin at all, but it's just there is more to Ireland than the Temple Bar district. Like, you know.
It's a different city than the rest of Ireland. So, and yeah, look, there's a bit. I think your first time to Ireland, you have to check the boxes and do the Guinness Brewery and Jameson Distillery and all those things. But after that, get out as fast as you can.
No offense taken, jealousy allowed. With regards to Dublin, I was going to say something there. Yes, so if we cover another location in Ireland in terms of points of interest, whiskey bars, distilleries, so on and so forth, where would you like it to be? Please tell us. I know Kilkenny did come up. I love Kilkenny. I know Kilkenny did come up a few weeks back, but is there anywhere else? Derry's very rarely spoken about. Derry's one.
I've never been.
It's Derry is probably about 5 to 6 years, if not more, behind Belfast, in terms of the kind of just the general kind of whiskey bar scene, cocktail scene. There's not to say that there aren't some fantastic places in Derry, but it's not quite there yet. Yeah.
Dingle, Clare, Sligo, Donegal. Donegal is very tough.
I love Donegal. If you could just drop me in the hills of Donegal and leave me, I would be happy for the rest of my life. I love Donegal.
If you sing Las Vegas in the hills of Donegal, we'll do an episode on Donegal. Do you know that song? No.
Yes, but I'm not going to do that. Listen, you've tried to get me to sing. You've tried to get me to rap. I'm not doing it. It's just not happening. The only time that it happens is in my car on my own.
Yeah, we were promised an entertainer, but we've not got one. Like, this is you kind of misrepresent your CV misrepresented your skills dramatically. I have to admit now there'd be a tinge of disappointment at the lack of entertainment.
Feed me enough whiskey combined with Guinness, and maybe might get a rap.
Like a coin operated machine. Put enough things in me and I'll go.
Exactly. Killarney's been covered, folks. Dingle's quite popular. Kilkenny's another one. Yeah, Kilkenny. Westport, yeah, another whiskey bus stop.
Yeah.
Whiskey bus stop.
We'll be doing whiskey bus
in Euro Disney would be hysterical.
That's random.
we encompass each of the parks, each of the worlds.
Dingle is like I
Dingle's
like Dingle, but
tiny.
Dingle, I don't know that you can get a full episode out of Dingle.
No, no. You could maybe combine Dingle and Kilkenny. In fairness,
Yeah, I mean they're in no way related
no
in
way
any
related.
fashion or
No
form.
way. But in terms of their size and things to do, you could probably combine them. Is what I'm thinking.
There's nothing
Westport,
to Westport could be done.
Westport could be done. Yeah.
Dingle is loved. I love Dingle. I'm obsessed with Dingle, but it's not a. It doesn't have a full. I mean, we'll spend 5 minutes. We'll have covered the whiskey stops in Dingle. Um, Waterford's the same. Waterford doesn't have. Waterford's got 3 or 4 stops. That's it. Whiskey wise, honestly, of note. Yeah. Well, look,
We'll figure it out. A few suggestions. Kilkenny
we
does
don't
keep.
like your suggestions, folks. We want better ones. Give us better suggestions.
Yeah, that's kind of all the thinking of all the bigger sort of cities in Ireland. We've kind of covered the main ones, I guess. We
Next,
could do
yeah,
Dublin. In fairness, we haven't done a
that's
shebang
true.
focusing on Dublin.
We should do Dublin. We should do
Yeah,
Dublin.
yeah.
Okay, but not
After we
next week.
insulted the city to no end.
That's it. That's it. Maybe do it by county.
County.
That's our
Dublin
next
also means math.
32 shebeens covered.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a great one. That's a great one.
Leitrim is going to be a quick one. Cavan will be. We'll
Monaghan.
go. Good evening, folks. Welcome to our Cavan shebeen. Good night.
Monaghan's another one. You can focus on that woman in the electrical store that keeps popping up on TikTok. Get her in the shebang. She'd be good crack. No one is going to have a clue what I'm talking about.
Hi, welcome to Sound Quality Monaghan, Ireland.
Monaghan. Today we've got wee Charlie in today, giving us a wee visit. Oh, stop!
Charlie
Please
is
look
pushed
up
out.
sound. Yeah, please look up Sound Quality Monaghan on social media, and you'll understand what we're talking about. Ah, stop.
Yeah, well, look, sure, lots for us to think about. We also don't want to do just location-based shebeen,
No.
so we've got some ideas and other deep dives into distilling and things like that as well. History. We're going to have. I haven't even told you, Lauren, but we're going to have one where we have Fionnán O'Connor is going to come on and join us for a shebeen, and it'll be an 18-hour shebeen,
Oh
which
my
will be
days.
fantastic.
That's not a lie. It's not even a mild exaggeration.
Fionnán O'Connor has a lot coming, which you're all going to be very interested in. For those of you who don't know, Fionnán O'Connor is a great friend of ours. He's the Ireland's preeminent whiskey historian, and he's the author of A Glass Apart, the book about pot still whiskey. He's finishing his thesis on the origins of distilling, and he is about to have 3 very interesting things happen. One is the thesis will be released and published. The second is he's writing a book. And the third is he's got his own whiskey coming out. And we're going to cover all 3 of those things with Fionnán over a series of shebeens and Stories and Sips Whiskey Club Meet the Maker events and some videos we're going to shoot with him as well. So he's doing some really interesting work uncovering really interesting history that leads us to where we are today with whiskey. And he's an entertaining soul. So we want him to come on and wax lyrical about some of his findings, which is going to be great.
That'll be great. Be really interesting. Yeah, I can take a back seat that week and let Fionnán do the talking. There's not room for 3 of us on it to be. There's definitely not room for 3 of us to talk. We genuinely would be there for about 4 hours. I still honestly think you should put a camera on me and I'll do a tour of Belfast.
I mean, you can do this without me putting a camera on you. You can just put a camera on yourself. Like my involvement in things,
A live stream. Think how funny a live stream would be.
it can't be done. Technologically, it can't be done.
Be great crack.
We'd need like a mobile outside broadcast unit. Like every time you go into a pub, it'll like lose signal, and you'll be chatting away saying the funniest things you've ever said in your life, and we'll just be staring at a cannot find feed screen.
Can stand outside them and talk about them and just not go in.
Sunday nights at midnight are hard enough without. First of all, the pubs are closed by the time we do a shebeen.
We'd have to maybe do it an hour earlier, just to allow me to rally. They don't need to be open if I'm not going in them.
You're not going into them. You're just standing outside them.
If it's going to be too noisy for me to go in them, I can just stand outside them and talk about their history. Can you imagine me bounding down Hill Street at 12 o'clock on a Sunday night?
Aren't there easier ways to produce a highly produced, well-rehearsed event like these Sunday nights?
There are. I'm just the crack factor in there would be an interesting one to try and pull off. Chris just said I could get locked in. Exactly. Who knows? We lock in Madden's upstairs in Madden's with the spot.
Sounds like Lauren has a week of planning to do brainstorming and idea generation to be done
for next week's shebeen. I already told you what we should do for next week's shebeen. I don't want to promise it now, though, in case everybody's in a heap by next Sunday.
We will come back to our audience with details once they've been confirmed with the participants that you're imagining.
We can't promise anything on behalf of someone else.
No. Well, look, we've covered a lot. We've covered Galway. We've covered whiskey experiences. We've covered some stories and sip stuff. Next thing that's going to happen, folks, is this week we're going to go live with our tasting kit for Killowen. Not Killowen. I'm drinking Killowen. Talk about Teeling. I was reading Killowen on the screen at the same time. We've got our stories and sips, a little tasting kit here from Teeling with 4 samples in here. This is going to be made available this week. None of you know what each of these samples are, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But the master distiller from Teeling is going to lead you through a tasting of these, and they're really interesting. These are really interesting. I think you may not have tried any of these before. So it's going to be a blind tasting where you're going to have to try and figure out what each of these is. And we're going to see how many people actually know what they're talking about. And I can tell you already, it'll be none of us. And I'm the only one who knows what any of these are. So I have to be counted out, which means I'm saved. So you won't know how little I know. I'll be saved from it. But these kits, we're going to put these up. You're just going to cover the cost of the shipping, right? Wherever you are in the world, we'll get these to you. And this will go live either Tuesday or Wednesday. We're finalizing the date for the tasting. Alex and Rob from Teeling are traveling all over the world at the moment. So nailing them down to being available on the same night. Looks like it'll be the first week of November. We're going to finalize those details, but we're not going to let that slow us down. We're going to make this available this week to you guys anyway. So that's it. All right. Sinead.
Sinead, indeed. Thanks, everyone, for joining, as always. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. And Lauren, thank you for your great tour of Galway. And we'll be back next week. We won't tell you what's coming, but we'll have some crap.
TBC.
TBC.
TBC. Slán to everybody.
All right. Slán to everybody. Have a good night. We'll chat to you soon.